Sit right here.
Sit right here. Special. Hello, everybody. I'm Sheldon DeSouza. I'm
Hi, Sheldon.
Hi, Sheldon. What am I going to say? For those of you who don't know, I'm vice chair of an organization called the Black Gay Men's Network. Several of our members are here in the room, and
I tried.
we tried. Good job. Basically, this is the experience that happened. May 12th, driving home from the gym, I turned on Wendy Williams, and I guess it was during the advice hour. A 23-year-old black male in New York called in, and he says, basically that Wendy, I've been seeing this guy. He's been going really great. He treats me really well. And today, he told me that he was HIV positive, and I don't know what to do. So Wendy goes into this whole tirade about, you see, that's what I'm talking about, now you've got to worry about whether you're HIV positive, and you've got to go and get tested, and this whole thing. And so then he's like, whoa. He says, we haven't had sex yet. We haven't had sex. This guy, he wants to have a relationship with me, and he told me this before we had sex. So, that really caught my attention, because I was like, well, wow, it's okay, let me hear what he has to say. So she says, you're 23, he tells you that he's HIV positive, and you haven't had sex with him? And he's like, yeah. She says, oh, then it's easy. If that was me, he would have turned around and saw my skid marks. So, I'm like, what? She says, you're 23 years old, and you don't need to be dealing with that. But she says, now I can't, I'll be fair, she says, I can't tell you to leave him, but I know if that was me and I was 23 years old and I had my whole life to look forward to, I wouldn't want to deal with that. So she turns it over to like everybody in the room with her. She says, how many of you agree with me? Raise your hands. And she says, call her. Everybody in the room has their hands in the air, and some people have both hands in the air. And so they start all this laughing and stuff. So he goes on to say that, this guy, he's been treating me really well, and, he takes me out, and, I've been developing, just all, how they met walking down the street, Christopher Street, and, he's looking good and all this stuff. And, she basically says, you have your whole future ahead of you. You don't need to deal with that. Be glad that you haven't had sex with him, and just run with a quickness. So, I dropped my briefcase in the driveway and went up to look for her phone number. And I was surprised. I got through very easy. I thought, it would be a big deal. Once I found the number, I just, said, this is Sheldon from New Jersey, and I wanted to talk to Wendy about what they let me right through to her. I basically, so she says, now Sheldon, I didn't tell her to break up with him. I said, but when you're talking out of both sides of your mouth, how are you going to say that, it's okay that, this guy was honest, with him, and, I said, well, don't you understand that you're telling him to run from a guy who was honest with him before they had sex in New York, where at 23 years old, there's thousands of men who will lie to have sex with this guy, or don't tell him and still have sex with him anyway and still be HIV positive. But you're telling him to run from somebody who's going to be honest with him. And then secondly, what makes you think that because this guy is HIV positive and this other one is healthy, that, he has something to deal with in him? I said, I told him, I said, I have a friend who's a gay man who said he would, as a gay man, a couple of years ago, we had a conversation, he said that he himself could never date someone who was HIV positive, that he would not ever date someone HIV positive, and he came down with multiple sclerosis out of nowhere, and that shit is kicking his ass. He can barely walk across the street. We have to stop him to cross the street. And he has a home aide right now who is HIV positive, who takes care of him, who lifts him up and down the stairs. You know, so you don't know because, you know, and then, you know, secondly, this guy's talking about a relationship. We all have our stuff to deal with in a relationship. So who's to say that the next guy is going to have anything less to do than this one? And you know what I'm saying? This is New York. This is in Utah. You know, if you want to learn about dating someone who's HIV positive, there's classes all over. There's classes and, you know, things that this guy can do. You know, and just, I like went down the list, point after point, with why that was an extremely ignorant thing for her to say. And her response was, well, Sheldon, we're just going to have to agree to disagree. You know, we're going to have... Now, on so many levels, I felt that that was wrong. You know, I was trembling on the phone. I was so angry, and I could see she was trying to, like, goad me to you know, act a fool. And if I was, you know, snapping and, you know, all that kind of stuff, they could have clowned me. But, you know, I said, I'm not going to let these people clown me. So then, you know, while I was on, people were, like, faxing in and, you know, oh, tell Sheldon that he's a donkey. You know, he's a donkey, you know, and I'm like, oh, I'm not even entertaining that. You know, then like the calls after me, people were calling in, you know, he doesn't know what he's talking about, that basically what I saw was that people don't differentiate between HIV and AIDS. You know, that there's a, if this 23-year-old doesn't want to deal with someone with AIDS, then he doesn't have to. And talk about all the people with AIDS that die, and, you know, but just one ignorant, hateful comment after the next, you know, kept coming in. And I think maybe like two black gay men called in that supported my opinion. But like for the last hour of the show, it was hateful comments like directed at me and how stupid I was for, you know, as what I saw, demanding human rights for this guy, you know. So, and what really impacted me from that is, you know, a couple things is that, you know, Wendy, what was it, this Imus guy. Imus can't call black women nappy-headed hoes, right? But Wendy Williams in New York City, the largest gay population, who's going to vote for her to get this New Now Next Awards, you know, in New York City, she's going to get on and say that black gay men who are HIV positive aren't worth the time of day. You know, in this city where 46% of us are HIV positive, that 46% of our audience isn't good enough and doesn't have a future. But how many black gay HIV positive men were listening in that moment? And I'm like, why aren't y'all blowing up her fucking fax machine?
Stop listening.
You know? Stop listening. You know, so...
And on that note, I definitely, I hear everyone commenting, everyone's getting fired up. Every time I hear this story, I get fired up. So before we all get, just too fired up, we got to continue on with the program.